I'm reading a couple of lines from the book The Relationship Between I and Me by Sri Ramesh Balsekar. And he says, our attitude to life so far, which has prevented the happening of this special kind of happiness, peace and harmony, is based on the fact that our attitude to life concerning the relationship with the other is antagonistic to the other. Hundreds of years of conditioning inherited since childhood has made us think of the other as a potential enemy. This attitude has created a tremendous burden of hatred towards ourselves because of the guilt and shame for hurting others, and hatred towards others for hurting us, which has made it impossible for peace and harmony to prevail in our lives. With this clear understanding, it is obvious that the peace and harmony to prevail in our lives, the basis of our relationship with the other must fundamentally change. Our present attitude is clearly based on what the other may do to me that could hurt me one way or the other. The only way this attitude can change is to be able to accept totally the concept that everything in the world is a happening according to the cosmic law. That how each happening, which may happen through any body-mind organism, affects whom for better or for worse, can also be only according to the cosmic law. The basis of the cosmic law is the human brain is incapable of ever knowing because of the vastness and the complexity of the cosmic law which concerns the entire universe for all time. In other words, no one is capable of doing anything, and therefore no one need be blamed for anything. This is the only way universal brotherhood can happen. Universal brotherhood among human instruments, it cannot happen between rivals and potential enemies. So the master here points to the basic understanding about what we see when we see the other. When we see the other as separate from ourselves, then it is our conditioning to perceive them as a threat, because that has been our conditioning for hundreds of years, the master says. However, I would say that it is even beyond that. I think it started with the Paleolithic age or even before, where we would tread very carefully and examine any animal approaching and instantly react to protect ourselves. While that kind of sensory awareness, instantaneous awareness, was necessary at that time, now we do not live in that kind of a society or system where that kind of reactivity is necessary. Yes, in certain situations like crossing the road, being mindful of your surroundings, awareness, that kind of awareness may help. And that kind of fear may also be rational in such situations. However, when we are dealing with interpersonal relationships, where we think that the other is the enemy, the saber-toothed tiger that is out there to hurt us, it is completely an imagined fear. Living in such a living with this idea of separation, we naturally perceive other as the threat, as the enemy, and that is why we see wars. That is why we see so much conflict in society, because we perceive the other as the enemy. So the master says it is the total acceptance, not an acceptance that is brought about through thinking, analysis, because mind tends to get entangled. So the moment you start reading or consuming information about how to settle the mind, how to change the mind, you're already caught up in the mind's game. It is just the total acceptance, cutting off the Gordian knot. There is no need to learn how to untangle it. For those who are not familiar with what is Gordian knot, back in the old days, someone created a knot out of strings in a village which can be called the modern day Turkey. And it was said that anyone who's able to untangle these knots will rule the whole of Asia. So in 333 BC, Alexander came and he tried to untangle the knot. While he was struggling, he realized that there is a simple solution, which was to simply cut the knot into two with a sword. And that's precisely what he did. He just cut the knot from the center and everything was untangled. So the total acceptance means cutting off the Gordian knot of the thought, of the thinking mind, which is creating this interpersonal conflict, perceiving other as the enemy, trying to hurt me. What we try to do is that we try to reason with the mind. But under the grips of emotion, our rational faculty is not strong enough to come to a decision. When the emotional center of the brain subsides, the rational brain does rise up. But it is still not the solution. It is still made up of separation, because mind by nature is separative. It is a fragmented entity that creates this subject-object divide, me versus the other. It is the ego center, or the me center as Master would call it. This me center is only concerned with self-protection. Now, I see self-preservation as a beautiful idea. And yes, in the event of an actual threat, it is wise to be alert and aware. But to be overly sensitive or overly alert to situations that are not threatening, but only the perception created by the mind that they are threatening, can be detrimental for the relationship. When I see the other as the enemy, I lose that sense of separation. I stay with that sense of separation and lose the unification. The unification is our real nature, to understand that we all are the unicity. In appearances, we may appear separate, like different flowers, each with its own fragrance, own beauty, own grace. While we may say that the other one is lacking something, or other one has certain attributes that I do not like, deep down underneath we know that it is one consciousness, the unicity, the unifying factor that binds us all. And everything is happening according to that cosmic law. That consciousness which animates this entire reality is the cosmic law. So instead of fighting and resisting, we bring about acceptance, which, as the Master here says, does not come about by thinking but by simply cutting the thought, which he also calls as understanding in action, where the understanding instantaneously happens that all thinking is futile, the thinking that happens in horizontal direction, trying to find out solutions to problems. And underneath it is realized that the problems themselves are not real. That is why Nisargadatta Maharaj in his book I Am That said that don't believe the mind. Whatever mind is presenting is a lie. If we can be aware enough, not hyper aware, not vigilant, but simply aware, in the neutral, calming presence, we will see that the mind has created these knots of thoughts, thinking. There is no need to untangle these knots. Just don't entertain, and it gets cut through. So, in the end, the Master says there is nothing to be done. Nobody is the doer. So, when nobody is the doer, nobody can be blamed. And when nobody can be blamed, there is no question of other being the enemy that I need to protect myself from. Kabir says in his famous verse that I go to see bad, I look for the bad everywhere, but there's no greater bad than me.